It may be amusing to know that the Kansas correspondent of the Kalamazoo Telegraph has opened a saloon in Chicago. This is the nearest that he has been to Kansas since leaving here. Consequently, his Kansas letters are very reliable, very. Kalamazoo Gazette.
The heart of the people beats for liberty. It says, "Gentlemen of the South, we desire not to interfere with your domestic arrangements, but when, by the force of arms, you carry the peculiar institution into free territory, it's time that you should look out." Kalamazoo Telegraph.
We have discovered the most conclusive and blasting proof that Fremont, while acting as governor of California, was guilty of defrauding the United States government. That ought to sink him in infamy in the estimation of all honest minds. Kalamazoo Gazette.
A few days before the rally, Wells received another letter. "At last, I am able to say, no accident preventing, I will be able to be with you on the 27th. I suppose I can reach in time, leaving Chicago the same morning. Yours truly, A. Lincoln."
The great mass rally of the Fremont supporters in Kalamazoo in August of 1856 was the kind of thing that would never happen in the late 20th century. We were obviously, long before television and radio made the voices of candidates familiar to us, and these rallies were a way in which people could meet the famous of the day and hear their positions and their speeches. And Kalamazoo in 1856, recall, was a village of 4,500 people, and this rally attracted, depending on who you want to believe, as little as 15,000 and as many as 35,000 people.
A Schoolcraft farmer named Henry Parker Smith recorded the events of the day in his diary.
"Did not go as I had intended with our banner wagon, but as Hattie wanted to go, I took her. We left Isa with Cynthia and drove very comfortably and got there before the multitude commenced pouring in." Henry Parker Smith.
The principal streets were hung with banners. About 8 o'clock, delegations commenced pouring in from every direction, and at 11 o'clock, a procession over 5 miles in length was formed. Niles, Inquirer.
We stopped upon the corner of Portage and some other street under the shade of some oaks and saw our delegation come up. It was over 2 miles long. We then went in near the ground for speaking and attempted to count the number of teams that drove past. After going up to 250, they came pouring in so fast that we gave up in despair. Henry Parker Smith.
By 10 o'clock, Main Street from the Kalamazoo House to the courthouse, and British Street from the depot to 3/4 of a mile southward were literally filled with a moving mass of human beings. So densely were the streets filled that teams were forced to move with the greatest caution for fear of trampling upon the multitudes of people that blocked up their way. Niles, Inquirer.
3 cheers for the Portage boys. A very large crowd came down from the Portage. Young men old enough to vote, dressed in blue blouse. Their banner bore a good motto: "Portage follows the Pathfinder. Free men toil not with slaves." Kalamazoo Telegraph.
The Schoolcraft Fremont Club bore a banner with a spread eagle in the center, and below it these words: "The soil of freedom bears not slaves but men." Detroit Tribune.
Now, because the rally started shortly before noon, there were a number of logistics that had to be taken care of, especially lunch. And accounts came down of this enormous food table that was spread with hundreds of loaves of bread and hams and all sorts of other goodies put out by the good Republicans of Kalamazoo.
The most extensive preparations had been made by the citizens of Kalamazoo to entertain all who might attend the convention, and most nobly was it carried out. The citizens generously threw open their doors and invited all to partake of their hospitality. Kalamazoo is but another name for philanthropy and generosity. Niles, Enquire.
I left Hattie and the horse and came to the grounds where there were 4 or 5 tables spread with the staples of the land: bread, meat, cheese, etc. The tables were about 15 rods long, and every few rods were set barrels of ice water with tin cups attached. I commenced at one end of a table and ate my way through, and when I gave in from sheer fatigue, I was alarmed at what I had done. Henry Parker Smith.
Abraham Lincoln had a very full day on August 27, 1856. We know from his letters to Wells that he left Springfield the day before and spent the evening of the 26th at the Madison House, a prominent hotel in Chicago. He then left Chicago at 8:30 on the morning of the 27th. We know it had to be 8:30 because the Michigan Central's only through train that day left Chicago at 8:30. And that train was scheduled to get into Kalamazoo at 1:32 p.m. Now, we also know that Lincoln spoke at 2 o'clock. So Lincoln had to come directly to the park to make his speech. And he began speaking promptly at 2 o'clock. According to contemporary accounts, there were perhaps 4 or as many as 5 stands, speaker stands, erected in the park that day. The rally was a large one. There were a number of speakers, and at any given time there were probably 3 or 4 people speaking. Now, we have accounts that say that Lincoln spoke from the Indian Mound, and we also have one account that was published in the Gazette in 1923, which says that he spoke from a stand at the southeast corner of the park, the corner that is down by the public library. The fact is that we don't know where Lincoln was standing when he spoke, only that it was somewhere in Bronson Park.
When he appeared in the park before the multitude, the people saw a tall, gaunt, smooth-shaven man with black disheveled hair and heavy eyebrows, dressed in a short alpaca sack coat, black satin open vest, wide turned-down collar with black necktie, and dark pants of cheap texture. The whole outfit probably not costing more than $10 in the money of the period. Charles S. May.
The text of Lincoln's speech was one of the few that was actually preserved from that great rally on August 27, 1856. And the reason it was preserved is not because we have Lincoln's copy of the speech. In fact, Lincoln gave a number of speeches that year, about 50 in all, and chances are he spoke without a script or maybe just from notes. We are extremely fortunate to know what he said because by sheer chance, a reporter for the Detroit Advertiser, one of the several Detroit newspapers at that time, happened to end up in front of Lincoln's stand, and he was skilled in phonography, which was the 1850s version of shorthand, and took down Lincoln's speech virtually word for word. And it's very curious because Lincoln was far from the most prominent speaker on the bill that day, and I've always wondered, why did he take down Lincoln's speech? Was it because Lincoln was the most prominent person speaking at that moment? Was it because he got confused in this mass of humanity swirling around and he couldn't get to the stand that Zach Chandler, one of the more prominent speakers, was occupying? Hard to say.
I was 31 years old at the time I came down to Kalamazoo with my mother to hear him. He stood on top of the mound in Bronson Park, and it was one of the best speeches I ever heard. He was introduced by Judge Wells as the tall sucker from Illinois. He took the platform of both parties and explained each one in detail. Then he asked the people to be the judges of which they wanted. He was campaigning for Fremont, and his talk won a lot of votes for him. L.B. Fisher, Cooper Township.
He had a clear, penetrating voice of tenor quality which reached the confines of the great crowd, and he commanded their attention from the start. Charles S. May.